Now, from the Signature Bank Studios.
In this other matter of importance, yesterday the White House proposed a collection of policies to ensure that China doesn't win the race for AI supremacy. The three pillars of the president's policy, AI policy. Pillar one, accelerate AI innovation. That means removing red tape and onerous regulation, protect free speech and American values. Pillar number two, build an American AI infrastructure. That's the power grid issue. And pillar number three, lead in international AI diplomacy and security. Make sure that America is the standard setter and that the standards are consistent with American values and not the values of the Chinese Communist Party, for example. So the question is the framework that was presented and the tension in our federalist society between federal rulemaking and state and local rulemaking, and there was no state-level AI regulation ban included in what was rolled out by the White House yesterday. So does the framework that was presented advance the flag for America when it comes to AI innovation, the brave new world that is upon us? For more on this, some insights, please be joined by Jessica Melugin, Director of the Center for Technology and Innovation with the Competitive Enterprise Center. Jessica, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure to be with you.
So your take on what the Trump administration presented yesterday?
Yeah, I mean, I think overall this is a really great course correction. You know, not that long ago, the Biden EO, Executive Order on Artificial Intelligence, was such a sort of safety-obsessed, fear-based document, right, that talked about, oh my gosh, these are all the things that could go wrong, and what are we gonna do about it? Not that shouldn't be part of the conversation, but unfortunately, under Biden, that seemed to be sort of the whole conversation. And I think that misses the mark here, because not only is it so important that America be the global leader on this, and that in 20 years the whole world is running on American AI, not Chinese AI, for some of the reasons you mentioned, but also, you know, this AI technology is going to be fantastic for people. There's going to be challenges. There's going to be questions that come up, but there's also going to be a ton of economic efficiency. There's going to be cures for cancer and other diseases. There's going to be environmental benefits. There's going to be so much good that comes out of this if we can get it right. And I think that yesterday's announcement was really much more focused on that. So for me, when I looked at it at first, I thought, wow, what a turnaround, just generally in tone from where we were a year or two ago.
Well, and it seems to me that one of the big challenges is, just in terms of this race, as it were, is the power challenge, the energy challenge, and building the sort of grid capacity for AI development. And I know Lee Zeldin, the EPA administrator, has talked a bit about that, rolling back some of the regulations on energy and deploying, all of the assets that America has, really sort of unleashing them, not deploying them. They're not the government's assets, but, encouraging America to be energy independent. And that certainly includes, it predominates actually, the fossil fuel industry. But so what in the action plan from the White House do we see with respect to the continued need for energy infrastructure to be built? Is there anything other than get to it that the White House offers?
Well, I think that's a fair summary, certainly. Get to it is certainly the energy behind it. But I think specifically the report directs the department, the EPA, to say, if you need to set aside some of the clean air, clean water, NEPA restrictions that really hobble all sorts of businesses getting the power and the energy they need, right? Like I love this for AI, but I would encourage the administration to look at this more generally. And sufficient power is really the first ingredient to all commerce in the U.S. So maybe this will lead to a broader look at why we put ourselves on an energy starvation diet. And I know that there's been environmental concerns and special interests on that pushing, but I think under this administration, it is really important to say what are the fundamentals for artificial intelligence success. And those data centers are going to take a lot of power. And I think that where we are now is that all power is on the table. As you mentioned, oil and gas, certainly, but also there's a lot of interest in nuclear power now. I think people are much more comfortable with viewing that as a safe and zero emissions option. And then, I think there'll be a bit more of a tussle with the wind and the solar. How much does that stuff really make sense without subsidies remains to be answered. And also it's a moving target, right? I mean, that technology, they've been saying that's about to take off for a long time. I don't know. But I like that all things are now on the table and that the EPA is being directed to say, okay, enough of the red tape. Like, let's get this, as you say, let's get this going.
So blind spots you see, things that concern you about this burgeoning industry, this burgeoning sector, and that you don't feel perhaps were addressed as substantively as they might have been.
I think that it's probably more on Congress than the executive branch. There was a little language in this that said, directing federal agencies who have AI spending, to consider what the state level AI regulatory environment is. And that points to a really big problem with AI right now is that we have all these states rushing to regulate. Congress hasn't acted. And a lot of what's coming out of those state legislatures is not good policy for AI. And the point is this, even if it were all reasonable policy, you don't want a patchwork of 50 different regulatory regimes that companies have to comply with here, because I can tell you that the Chinese companies operating over there aren't complying with 50 different regulatory regimes. It's very costly. It makes it very difficult on U.S. entrepreneurs. And also, it's only the big guys that the government says it's worried about in tech on one hand, but they're creating this environment where only the big guys are going to be able to comply with that. We don't want that. We want little tech and big tech out there winning the race for U.S. AI. So I think at some point Congress is going to have to act and preempt. I think that's a blind spot in this plan. And I would also caution that while getting rid of the sort of woke DEI stuff that was associated with the Biden EO is a good general direction to move, the idea that you're going to be able to certify these models as unbiased, that's a very subjective question. It also runs up against First Amendment concerns. It's a really messy area. And I would just advise that rather trying to regulate it from the left or the right, probably best to let these companies fight it out in the market and let users decide what they trust and what they feel is too biased to be trusted.
Yeah, I was going to raise the specter of the chatbots that have ideological dispositions. John Lott wrote about it recently. David Sachs, the Trump administration's AI and crypto panjandrum, said, quoting David Sachs, "We believe AI systems should operate free of ideological bias and avoid pushing socially engineered agendas. We've introduced several proposals to ensure AI stays truth-seeking and trustworthy." Yeah, I mean, that's I like David Sachs, but that is free of ideological bias is an impossibility because human beings are not free of ideological bias. And the whole pronouncement from somebody who has the working title of czar is a bit Orwellian to me. And so, I completely agree with you. And it seems to me, now I know AI is more powerful. This is the next technological revolution. But I mean, I'm old enough to remember the same sort of discussions when we were still getting used to email and the interweb and people, this is the Wild West on social media. People are saying all kinds of things that are untrue, and we need to have some minders there to make sure that everybody speaks only the truth and everybody is completely unbiased. And these silly utopian ideas we have about human interaction, whether it's interpersonally on social media or in connection with AI. It just seems to me this is the same dynamic playing itself out with a different technology.
You're exactly correct. This is the same sort of, what are we going to do about that pesky human nature problem?
Yes.
Human nature is, we're biased, right? Fox News doesn't think it's biased. Fox News thinks it's telling the truth. MSNBC doesn't think they're biased. They think they're telling the truth. Bias is just a part of being a human being. It's not going to go away. And we got through it with email. We're going to get through it with social media, and we'll get through it with AI too. If American citizens can't be trusted to think for themselves and decide what to be skeptical of and what to take as truth, then we have a lot bigger problem with this whole exercise in a republic.
No, some people, I think, have a solution. There's this human condition problem. We're going to get rid of the humans, and we're going to replace them with humanoids. Yeah.
A cure worse than the disease, or burning down the house to roast the pig, I think they call it. But, I think David Sack's comments are aspirationally fantastic, right? We should, just like in journalism, you try to present the facts and be unbiased, but everyone looks at the world through their own lens. The people who are programming AI models are the same, and also the content that model is drawing from, the inputs there, are a product of a lot of opinions and a lot of bias. And it'll be a market mechanism to get those results right, that people find them useful, that people trust them enough. We're not there yet. We might not ever be there 100%. That's okay. You're still allowed to use your brain on top of reading your AI results. We're going to have to work that out. Again, I think aspirationally keeping things fair and balanced is fantastic. The bottom line is who decides what that is, who's in charge of that, creates, I think, a bigger problem than when you have a bunch of competing models out there vying for each individual user. I think it's a much healthier, decentralized system for dealing with bias.
How do you use AI, and which AI do you use? Just like on a daily basis or weekly basis, however frequently you use it?
Yeah, I use Gemini, and I use it in a strange way. I write about these tech issues, these policy issues. I follow them. I know them inside and out, unfortunately. And so sometimes what I'll do is I'll ask it to write me a 700-word article about it, and I kind of check the accuracy of it, because when I talk about this stuff and I defend the innovation of this technology, that's the only way I know personally how to check how accurate it is. And it's not always that accurate. I put it at about 80%. And so for me, that's why it's easy for me to experience AI as a helpful tool. It can be an aid to you in your work, but it's certainly not a replacement for the humanity of crafting work and ideas. But I think in terms of organizational stuff that I use it for, it's very helpful. And I think it'll get better and better. But part of it is the human learning curve. We have to figure out how it works for us, what we're comfortable with, what it's trustworthy to do. I think there's some really cool models where you can put in what it uses as input, and it can summarize things for you, and you're in a little bit more control as a user of what information it's pulling from, right? You only put in trusted sources that you trust. So I think there's going to be a lot of dynamic change in that area that makes things better and better for users. But I guess most of the time I use Gemini. I also use some of the Meta models as well. The open source stuff is really interesting. And for people who are kind of techie nerds in a good way, I think that open source stuff is really exciting and cool for them, because who knows what people are going to do with it. It's great.
Jessica, the memes will get better if nothing else. Jessica,
yes.
Yeah, we got that going for us. Jessica Melugin, Director of the Center for Technology and Innovation with the Competitive Enterprise Institute. Jessica, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Oh my gosh, it was such a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And Jessica joined us on the Turnkey.pro answer line.
It's like a hot, steaming cup of information to start your day. It's Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
If you're living with pain, see how Relief Factor can help.
My back got injured very bad. I was off work for about a year. I heard about Relief Factor from my wife. I took it every day, 3 times a day for 3 weeks.